Hi, I'm Sara.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic a Podcast Story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of this specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode titled Introduction, Who Are We and What Are We Doing?
Sara. What movie are we doing this week?
This week, we will be talking about Kingfish, starring John Goodman as Louisiana Governor and Senator Huey Long. And we are excited to welcome Glenn from the Awesome Village podcast to our show.
Hey, Rena. Hey, Sara.
We met on Blue Sky, and I find your podcast to be like comfort food where I'm listening to it and I feel like I'm sitting around with like a bunch of dudes that I know and who are really funny, and I really enjoy listening to your show a lot.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to us. We grew up together. We love talking about movies and pop culture stuff. So we thought, let's just record it. And we just have a lot of fun.
I didn't know much about this guy.
We grew up 8th grade. Typically they do Louisiana history, and there's a lot of Huey in there.
It's a fun game to point figures and say whose state legislature is historically the most colorful. I personally grew up in New Jersey. Our current state, New York, has a pretty, but then there are Illinois, Texas, you guys, lots of...
I believe we may be the only area that's still, we don't have counties, we have parishes, and our legal system is still kind of based on the Napoleonic Code.
I was about to ask what the vibe is around like the education about Huey Long. How is he taught?
So he is just such an interesting human being, but he's just such a character. The way that he would talk, I think kids just really love him. He has just such a big, boisterous personality, and he did so many crazy things. I just remember, so a lot of kids just can't believe the stuff that he did.
Pretty shocking.
Yeah. So I've been to New Orleans twice, and I love it. And you guys were also one of the first other podcasts to give us the time of day in our first year. So thank you. And I guess John Goodman is one of our favorite actors to have pop up in a film. We loved him in Trumbo. And I know that he's such a big personality in and booster of New Orleans. And I imagine that everyone in New Orleans must have a story about that time they crossed paths with John Goodman. And it was totally awesome. Like John Goodman delivered my nephew during Hurricane Katrina, or John Goodman personally rescued me from alligators, or John Goodman got me reservations at Brennan's during Jazz Fest.
As far as John Goodman, just people love him down here. He was just kind of one of the OG NOLA celebrities, before Brad Pitt, before Nicolas Cage hung around so much. We had John Goodman. So many people had so many different Goodman sightings and stories. And when you talk to people that have encountered him through the years, you kind of get two different stories. The Goodman you would encounter out in the wild would depend on how public your encounter was with him, because as boisterous and as the characters that he plays, it seems like he's kind of a shy guy. He always just seemed like he was trying to stay under the radar and not get noticed. But especially, the 80s and 90s is when he was everywhere, and he just had such a large presence and stature. It was almost impossible for him to fly under the radar. Also, this area, it's not known for, it's not a very affluent place. There's a lot of blue collar people who related to his character from Roseanne, and just kind of, it was funny where they couldn't separate Dan from Roseanne with John Goodman. People would just walk up and talk to him like they knew him. As for stories, my favorite story was, so some of my co-hosts at the Village, they used to work with this really strange guy. I'm not going to mention his name or call him out, but let's just say he was at the House of Blues down here when it had first opened at an event. And after a couple of drinks, he went into the restroom, and he was at a urinal relieving himself, and he looked to the right, and right next to him, also urinating, was John Goodman. And this guy very loudly yelled, "Hey, you're John Goodman." John Goodman turned, looked him straight in the face, and said, "You really need to shut the F up." Turned around, washed his hands, and walked out of the bathroom. And he would always say, "John Goodman, he's such a jerk." And we're like, "No, that was the correct response."
Mhm.
That's something that's you wait till he zips his fly before you speak to him. But you also have other stories like one of my coworkers, she had this really sweet encounter where she had an elderly mother, and they went to a film, and they were staying through the end of the credits just because she was in a wheelchair and she didn't want to trip over anybody. And when she got up to leave, she kind of lost her balance and fell. And they said just out of nowhere, like some sort of superhero, these big strong arms caught her mother before she fell. And it turned out to be John Goodman. And he asked if she was okay, if she was hurt, if there's anything he can do. And he asked, "Please don't make a big deal about this. I don't want people to know we're here. When I come to the movies, I always come after it began, and I stay till the end because I don't want anyone to know I'm here." The fact that he did that with no one around, it kind of shows you the two sides to old Mr. Goodman.
Up here, if you're from here or LA, you understand the etiquette of that your return for getting these sightings is that you leave them the heck alone. And that all makes sense. I've personally never spent time in urinals, but my understanding is that they're one of those places where you should really leave strangers alone.
Yes, that
Yes.
would be a correct assumption.
Can you tell us a little bit about the legacy of Huey Long in Louisiana, for example, how he's remembered and how his time as governor is framed in schools?
Absolutely. And that's kind of a twofold question because again, I live in New Orleans. I live on what's called the West Bank of New Orleans, and his name is everywhere. There's a small city called Gretna, Louisiana. That's kind of where I'm right. That's where I work in. And the big main road that connects everything is Huey P. Long Avenue. And I think y'all would probably find this funny, and I'm sure Huey Long would have found this funny, but one of my family's favorite little places to go out and eat is Huey P's Pizzeria. Um, and which great pizza, by the way. But his main legacy is the Huey Long Bridge. Apparently, when this bridge was being constructed, it was supposed to be a railroad bridge because I've seen many pictures of the past of rail cars being put on ferries and they would take it across the Mississippi River. And when they were building this bridge, apparently Huey Long said, "Well, why don't you put some roads on either side of the train tracks for cars?" And I can tell you, growing up, the Huey Long Bridge was the scariest frickin' bridge in the history of bridges because it was pretty much two very small lanes on the side of these giant train tracks. They have since renovated the bridge and it's massive. It kind of connects two major parts of the city. Everyone goes over the Huey Long Bridge. In fact, every year I do a Huey Long 5K that goes over the bridge. Um, and the first few years that the race was held, there's a local actor by the name of Spud McConnell who's actually in Kingfish, and he would show up in full Huey P. Long garb with the starting pistol, and he'd start the race. So again, his name is just everywhere. But as for the actual human being, just like with just about any political figure, it just depends on who you ask. Everyone's got an opinion. But overall, his reputation, it isn't awesome. A lot of people just relate him to corruption, which always revolves around Louisiana politics. There's a lot of our former political figures that are incarcerated, and that's just kind of par for the course down here in Louisiana. Um, as far as like the way it's taught in school, every school kid around here takes a field trip to Baton Rouge. We go to the Capitol, and once you get to the Capitol, again, like the Huey Long show, they talk about how the Capitol, it's the largest, tallest Capitol in the country, and it still is. And kind of the highlight, you see the hallway where he was shot, and the guide will take you, show you the bullet holes that are still in the walls, and it's very interesting. And fun fact, there is a statue of Huey Long right on the outside of the Capitol. and it was designed with a giant light that was designed to shine on the spot on the statue at night. The rumor goes that if the current Louisiana governor is a fan of Huey Long, the light goes on at night. If the current governor is not a fan, that light stays dark. And let's just say our former governor was a man by the name of John Bell Edwards. The light was on. Our current governor not only does not put the light on, he has talked about tearing the statue down and replacing it with a current political figure whose name I will not mention. That's kind of where we're at with how he's remembered.
Glenn, can you just tell us, we've kind of talked about the podcast, but can you tell us a little bit about the Awesome Village?
Absolutely. It's me and pretty much my three best friends that we grew up with, Greg and Ryan and John. And we all went to the same high school over here on the West Bank in New Orleans. We graduated different years, but we all knew each other. But we kind of all became friends working at a movie theater. And kind of our favorite things to do were just talk about movies, actors, pop culture. And eventually we just thought, we talk about this for fun. So let's, start our little podcast. So we just talk about what we've seen and, what's going on with our lives. Lately, we've been trying different snacks from around the world. We'll do fun little features. Like we just had this giant 12-part feature where we were coming up with the most epic movie moment of all time. And again, we try not to take it too seriously. We just have a good time and try to put as many positive vibes out into the world right now. It certainly needs it.
Indeed. I have to listen to your latest episode about actors who kill it in one scene. I'm a little behind.
Yeah, I mean, that one just dropped on Wednesday. Our episodes drop every Wednesday. We did a fun we made a top 10 of single scene performances.
Oh, okay. I can't wait to listen to that because character actors are my thing.
Oh yeah, we love character actors. They're no small parts.
On that note, Rena, do you want to give us a trigger warning for this episode?
Trigger warning. This movie contains depictions of and/or references to political corruption, populism, adultery, politics, the American South, the state of Louisiana, violence, racism, old-timey newsreels, Hitler, Mussolini, redistribution of wealth, FDR, cigarette holders, family dysfunction, cloche hats, assassination, and stenography. I feel like that was shorter than usual.
I mean, there's a lot of very broad topics in there. So, Rena, can you also give us the spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art having nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned.
So some of the sources used in this episode include Perspectives in History, a 5-part podcast series on Huey Long, Gadfly, which is a 6-part series on Huey Long, also TV, an interview with Dick Cavett featuring John Goodman, some coverage from Variety, and, just the internet.
Sara, can you please tell us a little bit about the 1995 television drama Kingfish, starring John Goodman as Louisiana Governor Huey P. Long?
Of course. This was a TV movie that aired on TNT on March 19th, 1995. It was directed by Thomas Schlamme, who is a prolific maker of television. He's been an executive producer for a number of things connected to Aaron Sorkin over the years. And he has also directed many TV episodes since his career kicked off in 1983. He also directed the film So I Married an Axe Murderer. And it was written by a man named Paul Monash, who was a television legend. He was 78 when this movie came out and continued to work. He wrote the miniseries Salem's Lot, the one from that Tobe Hooper directed. The movie The Friends of Eddie Coyle, which if you haven't seen it, it's awesome. The miniseries V. He also produced Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Carrie, and Big Trouble in Little China, among many, many, many other things. He's responsible for a lot of entertainment that I have loved. And this movie.
Glenn, can you please tell us a little bit more about Huey Long?
Yeah, absolutely. Huey Long was from a small town in Louisiana called Winfield. It's ironic that Long is so associated with both New Orleans and Baton Rouge because Winfield, it's actually in central Louisiana near the town of Natchitoches, which is primarily known for their Christmas festival. He began his life as a traveling salesman selling cooking oil. He went to 2 colleges, but he never did graduate. However, he studied law at Tulane University and took the bar exam, and he passed. He specialized in workman's comp, and he often targeted oil and gas companies. He won his first election in 1918 for Railroad Commission. In 1924, he lost his first bid for governor, but ran again in 28 and won. His big claims to fame were infrastructure, education for all, and charity hospitals. Impeachment efforts against him failed in 1929, and in 1930, he was elected to the U.S. Senate.
Was he, from all of the time that he's spending in Louisiana while he's supposed to be senator, if I didn't know better, I would have assumed that he was trying to be governor and be in the Senate at the same time, which I don't know if that's legal.
So this was actually kind of funny, and I had to consult my wife about this. And so he was elected to the Senate in 1930, and his Senate seat was actually left vacant until his term as governor ended. So even though he was elected in 1930, he didn't become serving in the Senate until May of 1932. In the scheme of Louisiana politics, we were always taught that taking the Senate seat was a bit of a downgrade from governor. But old Huey had his sights set on the presidency, and he knew that Senator Long would get much more exposure in other parts of the country.
I should have looked this up. What kind of majority do the Democrats hold that they're not screaming at him to be there for the votes?
So that's actually really interesting because growing up, there's been a switch in Louisiana politics where in the past it's always been a very blue Democratic state, but somewhere around the late 90s, early 2000s, where it flipped to just about as red as you can find. I'm not really sure what caused it or when the exact flip happened, but it definitely, when I grew up, everybody, voted Democrat. There were Democrats everywhere, but now that's not really the case anymore, and I really can't answer why.
I would surmise that as like part of Nixon's Southern strategy to slowly taking hold, and it's actually a wonder that some Southern states held out as long as they did.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, our previous governor, John Bell Edwards, was actually a Democrat who served 2 terms. And the fact that he was able to do that in the deep red South, he was pretty cool. He had to cross the party lines, and he actually did a lot of good. I'm not going to speak too much on our current governor, but we really love John Bell down here.
I watched this movie on a YouTube free version that looked like someone filmed their TV while watching a VHS tape. It was nominated for 2 Emmys, and it's not streaming anywhere.
I watched it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, we open on a faux newsreel that puts us in the world, and we see that Huey Long is running for president against noted villain FDR, who is played in this movie by Bob Gunton, who's a noted stage actor. And then we cut right to the day that Huey Long is assassinated, September 8th, 1935. We see throughout the steps that he takes in this day that he's coarse, he's a populist, he's charismatic. We see him golfing. He spends some time with his mistress, who is a baby Anne Heche. And we are seeing that he's also a bit of a bully. He talks about himself in the third person, which is always a dangerous sign, saying, what the kingfish wants, the kingfish gets.
Yeah, a composite character alert. Aileen Dumont is not real. She's based on another woman. I don't know why they needed to replace the name, but that's just the case here.
It was delightful to see her.
I miss seeing Anne Haitian things. That it was nice to see her.
Yeah. She was such a talent. And I don't know if you guys had this experience, either the recording, the camera set up to record the television was either flawed, or the sound mix on this film was bananas terrible, because the music was like attacking me. I felt like it was like oppressive. It was in every scene.
Yeah, I didn't find the music that loud.
Maybe it was the version
As
I
you're
was
saying.
watching. Yeah.
I
think
mean, yeah,
we
you
ha-
could definitely tell this was a TV movie from the 90s.
Yes, you really see that. And we
Yeah.
end the day with him getting shot, and we see the cops, the guards at the chamber kind of go into overkill to protect Huey, but it is too late, and it's very clear that he is going to die.
The hallway where they filmed the assassination, that's actually the hallway in the Capitol where he was shot. And as you mentioned, you know, they shoot the hell out of the so-called assassin, but it's pretty widely accepted down here that the bullet that actually killed him came from one of his bodyguards.
That sucks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we immediately go into one of everyone's favorite biopic tropes, the long, long life flashing before my eyes cut, where we're back in 1919 and Huey is driving a car.
So this is the most overused storytelling method in the biopic genre, and I understand why they do it, to tell us why the person is important and why we should care before showing their journey, and because even as a cliche, it still feels less paint by numbers than pure linearity. I also wonder, do I feel this way because I have seen at least 100 biopics, the 70 odd ones that we've done episodes on, and then the many, 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 many dozens of other ones that we haven't gotten to on this show, but that I've seen already. And we know that this has been a trope for a while because Dewey Cox called it out 20 years ago.
I have a bunch of complaints in our notes here about the score. Like, I just keep going with it, where I'm like, the score is aggressive. We see the way he has a real gift with people right away. Like, he is really good at interacting with people. I think like being a salesperson probably prepares you very well for a life of politics, because you do have to negotiate with people whose needs are, you know, are intractable and they're inflexible, and you have to kind of like, you have to guide them to a better place. So it completely makes sense that, you know, that he could become a great politician out of being a salesperson.
Yeah, you also have to be a guy, gauge people that don't really want to talk to you.
We see like just some of like the signs and symptoms of the South of 1919. There are people with many children. We see very clear like class divides in the Jim Crow of seeing sharecroppers and dirt farmers walking along the side of the road while he is driving. And we see that that kind of bothers him for a minute. But then we go back to the nice music, and it picks up and everything's moving along again.
He's been running for railroad commissioner, which is how he stops at that couple's house. And he also, you see him help a black man get his tractor out of a rut, and he gives the man money to cover the poll tax. So I feel like this movie is trying to show that Huey Long is acceptably non-racist from a 90s perspective, although it sounds like he was comparatively not that, like he was comparatively less racist than a lot of his contemporaries.
Yeah, Glenn, what's the deal with him and race?
It's strange because it seems like, I mean, where he grew up, it wasn't the, let's just say it wasn't the whitest of places. So it seems like he grew up around the sharecroppers and people like that, and it was almost like, it's not even that he saw it. It seemed like you said, it for the time being, he was a little more progressive as some of the other white people in the South. That scene where he gives the guy the dollar for the poll tax, and he's like, "Vote for whoever you want, just remember who gave you the dollar," kind of thing. It was more about, just using his awesome way of speaking to people.
And when he wins the election, he meets a man named Seymour Weiss, who will kind of become he's a campaign manager, but he's way more than that. He's like a chief of staff and a lifelong companion in his professional life. And this is played by Matt Craven, this cast is stacked with talent. This is one of those cases where Matt Craven is an actor who is in a ton of stuff, but not necessarily one of those ones we know really well.
Yeah, and they have a young Ann Dowd on this, who I feel like until the past decade or so, she was someone who would kind of pop up everywhere and then disappear into whatever she was doing.
We see that his brother is played by the actor Jeff Perry, who is someone you've seen in everything. And his brother will later become the subject of another biopic called Blaze. So,
directed by Ron Shelton, husband of Lolita Davidovich, and director of the movie we featured in the first episode we did that I think is like really holds up very well, Cobb.
Oh yeah, Earl Long has quite the reputation down here as well.
How is he regarded compared to his brother? Because
he is more. It's strange because when I spoke to my father about this today, his immediate thing was, "Oh, Earl Long, he's the one that was crazy," and that's kind of how he's remembered down here. For like, I guess if he were alive today, they would say he was bipolar, but I know he was institutionalized, and he's just kind of remembered for the mental illness.
That's too bad. Also, to be the crazy one when Huey Long is your brother is really something.
Well, I'm sure he cast a large shadow.
He's decided he's going to run for governor, and we're seeing this montage of him campaigning for governor and how, again, he's connecting with people. But he is a populist, which is a dangerous thing to be sometimes because you're telling everyone about what they don't have and how you're going to fix it. So that's always a danger. And this is where I was like realizing it was like there's something, the thing I really didn't like about this movie, and it is because it is a product of the time of the 90s and TV movie, is that it feels like there's giant chunks of the movie that are missing. And we cut from scene to scene, and it's like, wait, I feel like there's information I don't have because this is moving so quickly and they have to compress so much into such a short period of time.
I think today this might be a prestige drama 8-parter.
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing, like a Hulu miniseries.
There's like 20 pounds of activity that they're trying to stuff into a 5-pound sack. And it feels like you're being denied stuff, especially with this cast. Then it's 1928 and he has won, and we're at inauguration day, and his dad sucks. His dad didn't call. His dad didn't come to the inauguration. Like, what the hell? Huey's a handful, but his dad is really like, I do not want anything to do with you ever.
The wrong kid one.
So we meet Anne Heche, who's playing a character named Aileen Dumont, who's based on another woman entirely. Her name was Alice, and she was known for things like hiding banknotes in her. They have some really fun pronunciations of brassiere later in a trial scene. She's going to be a secretary and have an affair with him, and it seems like she's a good secretary. I wasn't 100% sure from how they look at the paper after she's typed everything up, whether she's supposed to be a good typist, they made out that she was a good stenographer, or whether the point is that they're hiring her for being cute because it's pre-Ellen DeGeneres Anne Heche. And
oh yeah, this was way before 6 Days, 7 Nights.
Yeah. So Huey wants to give free textbooks to schools, and he gets some flack for it because people don't want Black children getting textbooks.
Right. And again, this was one of his big claims to fame, that he did this for everyone.
He also decides to harass the former governor at a bar, which is kind of uncool, but you know, we do what we need to. And it looks like the previous government is taking kickbacks from Standard Oil.
Yeah, this scene was actually filmed in the Roosevelt Hotel where this actually happened, too.
Love that.
Yeah. And I guess Standard Oil, the Rockefeller family showed up in our Frida episode where John D. Jr. was played by Edward Norton. They're just around that point where Jr. and his kids are going to try to redeem the family name by spending a lot of money, but they aren't quite there yet. The Rockefellers this is in the mixed point in their mixed reputation.
This is like the fifth boring political party we've been to during Politics Month. We've been to way too many of these. And I think like Anne Heche and John Goodman are great together.
Mm-hmm.
They have really good chemistry.
Well, that's, I guess, one thing about
sorry.
Goodman. Goodman seems to have chemistry with lots of people.
He makes everyone better in the scenes that he's in, and I was going to save this for the other stuff you should watch instead, but he makes it like Val Kilmer, he makes everyone who's acting opposite better. Like, Roseanne is not an actor, but he and Laurie Metcalf could make her work as one.
She was wise to surround herself with those two. And it sounds like he's not great about delivering things if people betray him. Sounds like he's got a bunch of roads to nowhere that he started in areas and then decided to stop working on because someone pissed him off.
And spoiler alert, this might come back to bite him later in his life.
I was listening to podcasts about him today. I found out that there were almost no paved roads in Louisiana at the time, and he would build these rather poorly made roads that they were paved, but they'd need maintenance like a year in. And it was like, this is a teaser road. This is a trailer for the road that we might build if you show that you like me.
He's definitely aggressive and says what he feels like saying. And he's doing what he wants to do, which isn't necessarily good leadership and is not good politics. Also, at this point, my closed captions had him yelling, "I am a Constitution," which delighted me. It was very Schoolhouse Rock.
Love it.
Yeah, and his wife shows up, and it is Ann Dowd, and she is unhappy because you don't do that to Ann Dowd.
I have another question about him. He has a very fancy house.
Yeah.
How did he get such a fancy house?
Yeah, for what I could tell, he didn't spend a whole lot of time. Reminded me of a lot of scenes in Walk the Line.
Oh, right. The parts in Walk the Line where he's with Kristen Wiig and he's never home and there's another set of triplets and he brings home another exotic pet with him to make up for it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. You're going to give me that giraffe.
Yes. Your orangutan. How did he get such a fancy house, though?
That's a very good question. I honestly don't have an answer for that. Exactly how he got such a fancy house. I imagine. I mean, vegetable oil sales couldn't have been that big in the 30s.
Yeah, when she was saying like, "You built us this house and you're never here," and I'm like, "How did you build that house, my friend? You're a politician."
I think that's your answer.
He also starts quoting Invictus at this point, another movie where they're quoting Invictus, which I did not see coming. Second time in a month that we've seen quoting of Invictus.
It seems like politicians in the early 20th century were very into the poem Invictus. I am the master of my soul. Shame that Huey and FDR couldn't have bonded over their shared love for this poem. Well, they
had a falling out like no other.
We just did the mildly soporific FDR biopic Sunrise at Campobello, where people recite Invictus nearly the whole way through twice in that movie.
Nice.
Which is...
FDR is my wife's absolute favorite president.
You know, I think he's the best of the 20th century presidents, I think. But I have to say, I even though it's in part because he's an absolute scumbag who, for out of some miracle, does the right thing. My favorite is actually LBJ, Robert Caro's biography, he goes into these like laughable like page details of what a total scumbag LBJ was, but then the miracle and mystery of it is, and yet he passes civil rights and the Great Society. I think he's fascinating.
They actually had the world premiere of, like, Woody Harrelson was down here for a while when they did the LBJ film. Yeah, they premiered that in New Orleans for some reason.
He's doing that thing that we see in biopics where he's blaming everyone around him for the reasons that he's never home. And it's really like, you're stupping your secretary. That's what you're doing. I know it's because of your constituents, supposedly, but really it's about the secretary.
Well, yeah, Sarah, he can't take his work home. If he could stuff his secretary at home, he'd be home more often.
Yes, and there to play with the kids. I love how no matter who a man is in these movies, there is always a wife at home who's like, you're not home for dinner, and I'm angry at you about it. Every time. And then we're bringing impeachment charges against him for telling his bodyguard that he could kill someone and he'd grant him clemency, which seems egregious.
Yeah, funny, this bodyguard is actually played by the local actor Spud McConnell, who made a whole career of making appearances at events dressed as Huey Long.
That is the way to do it.
And most people remember him from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where he says, and stay out of the Woolsworth.
Huey looks very put out by his impeachment process and annoyed that he has to be there, and he gets up and goes to the toilet and everyone follows him, and then when he goes in they all sit down because they know they have to wait for him, which is some good physical comedy that happens in that moment. And there's just so much corruption that they're reading off, and it's being played for delights and giggles, which is not great. Then, not unlike other leaders that we've had, he has a rally to make himself feel better, and then he has the police round up 12 representatives to sign against impeaching him while they're all in the midst of committing crimes, which is fun.
There was a story that he actually had a honey trap for some preacher who'd been preaching against him.
I don't want to participate in honey trapping, any side of it, but I am impressed by leadership that manages to pull that off. Another newspaper comes flying at us, and he's going to run for Senate. He believes that Roosevelt wants him to campaign for him, but he's also trying to strategically hide him so he doesn't get any national exposure, which is an interesting tactic.
I guess that worked before TikTok.
Could you imagine Huey Long if TikTok was around?
He would have been good at it. I think he also would have done many all caps Twitter tweets too.
Back to the beginning of the Great Depression.
Yes. So he wins, and they have a party, and Heche is super pissy about the fact that he has to dance with his wife at the party, and I'm kind of like, you're a politician's mistress. You don't get to be pissy when he dances with his wife. Those are the rules. I didn't make them. You have to play it cool. And there is a resistance building against Huey among some of the more wealthy political class, and they're talking to someone about Europe and the rise of Hitler and Mussolini. And they're comparing Huey Long to being the same kind of problem, which is a little far.
A little bit. Yeah.
Also, Huey seemed to, when he was in the Senate, he felt like things weren't going far enough in terms of redistribution of wealth. And he was talking about the 1% way sooner than I was familiar with that term. That felt really interesting to hear it, the way he was talking about the wealthiest 1% of our society, because I don't know when I thought that came about, but it was interesting to hear it in the context of 1930s.
Absolutely. It seemed like the main difference between now and the 1930s, at least in the way it's depicted in this film, is air conditioning.
Yeah, I loved all the white suits and the sweat circles on the white suits.
I mean, white suits are a bold choice.
It's a thing down here. There's many an attorney that I've seen walk in with the seersucker suit.
I mean, it's such a
Oh,
good look,
I
but
know
it's...
why the South came up with the linen suit and the seersucker suit. You have to look formal, and you cannot wear even the lightest weight, like Milanese wool. Will
That's
kill
absolutely
you.
correct.
So you had a note here about, are we implying that Huey Long had to
Oh.
shove off the New Deal, Sarah?
Yeah, it feels like in this scene where the implication that Huey Long is like, we're not doing the New Deal. We need to do the New Deal, and FDR isn't doing enough. And I'm like, dude, slow your roll.
We have a scene of Huey in the Senate where everyone is going through normal Senate procedures, and he stands up to make a big speech. It is not planned as a bill, just a speech about the need to redistribute. But my thing here is that he's objecting to the Senate actually doing what they're supposed to do, which they no longer do, because if you turn on C-SPAN, they are constantly on quorum call until one in a bare minimum shows up to make a speech for a few retirees back home. But I was like, oh my gosh, the Senate is actually in session with most of them there, carefully constructing bills with awareness of the practicalities so that voters don't have to do this incredibly boring thing because the process is just too damn dull. Like, can you imagine if the whole public had to read all the bills and vote on the things? Like, they're doing this very dull work for us because we elected it so that we wouldn't have to deal with it. And we just make the assumption that on the average, based on consensus, they'll take care of it for us as we would, and thanks for getting this off our laps. Like, we send them there to do it for us. He's objecting to the Senate actually doing their jobs.
And actually, one thing that he was really known for was how good he was at the filibuster. He was very famous for reading random Bible quotes.
I want a standing filibuster to be brought back.
I think that would solve a lot of problems, because also people would probably waste time reading texts that they'd found formative, and that would force people to listen to the opinions that their opponents had found like moved and swayed and shaped them. It just might make it a little easier for people to learn to hammer things out again.
Yeah, it's time. Then we're at dinner with Frank Costello. Frank Costello, the mobster, is suddenly in the movie. I felt like Frank Costello needed more of an introduction.
Who is Frank Costello?
He is a member of the mafia.
Yes, and in this film, if you're a Tarantino fan, you may notice that Costello is played by an actor by the name of Kirk Baltz, who was a police officer that was tortured in Reservoir Dogs.
He's the one who gets upset about being disfigured, and then Michael Madsen is like, at least you get to live?
Yeah, he's the one that they cut his ear off.
Yeah. So we find out that Frank Costello wants to set up some gambling rackets, and they're going to allow it to happen with a kickback, which is a little messy. We cut to the funeral where we finally meet his father, who is not interested in him at all. And they're both avoiding each other, like they're at a party and they don't want to talk to each other, which I just thought was interesting. The play out there, because it's his dad.
So, yeah, who is Frank Costello, though?
I believe he's New York mob. Because as we were watching the movie, I think I looked it up. I want to say that he started out with Lucky Luciano.
And also, he may show up in some other things that we watch. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, Alto Nights, the De Niro movie that came out this year, in which he plays two people. Frank Costello is a character in that, and then also in Bugsy, and and Mobsters. He's played by Costas Mandylor. I want to watch that movie so bad, you have no idea.
So, but going back to the uncle's funeral, Glenn, are these some of those famous Louisiana above-ground cemeteries?
One of the weird quirks that comes with living below sea level is that we have to bury people above ground, because if we buried people below ground, when the floodwaters come, which happens down here from time to time, the caskets will come right up with them. After Katrina, the floodwaters were so high, one of the more ghoulish jobs in the city was identifying and returning remains to where they were displaced from.
Like, I have read a lot of Anne Rice, and this gives me the shivers, and I wish that she'd written something about what Louis and Lestat were up to during Hurricane Katrina. I've always assumed that they were chilling with John Goodman between all the babies he delivered on rooftops.
Shut up and take my money. I will I will go see that.
They were like, let's not drink John Goodman.
Or the
No.
other celebrity that was hanging around that time would be Nicolas Cage. Imagine them, the four of them hanging out.
Oh my
I
gosh.
feel like Louis and Lestat, I don't know, I feel like Lestat might drink Nicolas Cage.
He has an amazing cemetery in New Orleans, by the way, like a tomb. When the IRS was taking Nicolas Cage's all his money, apparently the one thing they can't touch is your casket. So he threw all his money, and in one of the like oldest cemeteries in the city with all these people from the Revolutionary War, there's this giant obelisk in the middle that looks like a pyramid. I think the house he bought was actually like a famous haunted house, and let's just say that didn't go awesome for him.
Even Nick Cage cannot safely own a haunted house.
Right.
So, yeah, his dad, I can't get over how put off his dad is by his existence.
Yeah,
Like,
his dad is right up there with Mr. Cash Sr. and Wrong Kid Died. And his dad is miffed at him for telling these, oh, my rotten childhood, look, I'm a man of the people backstories. But he's right. All politicians do this. Or they
Yeah.
choose to highlight the one thing from their childhood that sounds like hard times. Like, I can't imagine how the Bushes got elected with this requirement.
Well, also what helps is that people have the memories of Nats, and they're like, they see George W. Bush as a Texan, and it's like, bro went to Yale. He grew up in Maine. Oh, the genteel times. 2001, as he feels that FDR is not doing enough, and he launches something called the Share Our Wealth Society. I couldn't get a good handle on the Share Our Wealth Society. What is this? Is this a pyramid scheme? Is this like, is he starting a private bank? Like, what is this Share Our Wealth Society? I couldn't figure it out, but it sounds like it's crazy radical for America.
I think it's like people uniting around taxing the very rich at a quite high level. I think all systems rise and fall on their ability to balance freedom from and freedom to, and accept and periodically tinker with the conflicting nuances around these things.
I'm on board with taxing billionaires because I'm pretty sure to be a billionaire, you have to have hunted a human for sport at some point. I just think like at some point you have done something like that evil to have that kind of money. But yeah, I wasn't clear on what this was. But we are going to go meet with FDR, and making FDR your villain in the third act is a very bold choice. This is like when Pete Seeger was the villain of the Bob Dylan movie.
Yeah, and Toshi was like, no, honey. I can't with them making my beloved FDR a villain, and I got very miffed at them for what they do to FDR here, because there are not enough movies about the Roosevelts. They really knock the dimensions off old Franklin.
And clearly, like, they had different perspectives on things, and FDR is a little more genteel.
They should have just bonded over Invictus.
Yeah, they could have quoted poetry at each other. And then we have another headline about how someone tried to assassinate Huey. And this was fascinating to me because he has declared martial law in Baton Rouge, and it has the feel of a citizen's arrest where I'm like, are you allowed to just declare martial law as a senator? And everyone does it, and he's like, I'm suspending like the press, and everyone has to be home by 9. And I was like, there were once expansive powers when people were senators. I guess it's like the Air Bud thing where it's like, well, no one said that a dog couldn't play basketball.
It's kind of widely known around here that when he became senator, that his successor was handpicked by Long, and his name was Oscar K. Allen. And Oscar K. could have just been, old Huey wants me to do it, I might as well do it.
Yeah. And then he and Anne Heche are hanging out in the house, and he's talking about all the things that they're doing to protect him. And we get like the woman's like, "I'm worried about you. You're going too far" speech from Anne Heche. And then he's like, "Oh, I just faked this." And this is another very dangerous thing to be doing as a leader and taking you down a road that you cannot get off of when you fake your assassination attempts, because that's what cult leaders do. Yes, it does galvanize the people around you and might win you an election, but yes, I have a tinfoil hat on about that shit.
Hey.
But yeah, he just did it for the lulz and to garner support and get headlines. Then we see Matt Frewer is in New York meeting with Frank Costello, and it seems that the slot machines are working a little too well. They got to slow it down because Huey is going to run for president, and he can't have this blatant graft going on in his state. Then Frank Costello says, "Oh, I can get gossip on everyone for you." I was curious about this, and Glenn, maybe you know. Was any of this real? Like the FDR people saying that they were going to kill him?
The kill that I don't know about. I do know that it's pretty. A lot of people mention that he was so determined to run for president that he was going to do a third party run, which may have actually split the Democrats, and him and FDR very well both would have lost.
But he would have made a point.
Yes, he would have. And it's we're all our principles are what guide us.
Yes. Yes, yeah. He would have had the principled stance about how we shouldn't, how
That's right, and we would have gone into World War II without FDR, and there's a fun alternate history moment.
I was about to say, like, that would probably have been the alternate history that gave us Lindbergh.
Oh, yeah.
My.
I mean, that could have been wild. I'm glad he didn't do it.
Yeah, I don't, not so wild from some folks' perspective, Sarah.
No, I know, not good wild.
We are there.
Not good wild, bad wild. So it's a really good thing he didn't run. That would have been something.
Yeah, so he is back on the train.
Yes, and we have an appearance by the wonderful character actor Bill Cobbs here as a porter. This was a fascinating
Love Bill
scene.
Cobbs. I will always remember him as a character named Del Paxton in That Thing You Do.
Okay, I was like about to be like 1, 2, 3 and see if we both said Demolition Man.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, he was.
But he's in a lot of things, but like Demolition Man is the thing that's popping up in my head right now is Bill Cobbs.
Yep. Stallone's old helicopter pilot friend.
He has such gravitas no matter what he is in. And this was such an interesting scene because he was betraying his disappointment and tiredness, and Goodman was trying to bring him around, and he wasn't coming around to like this idea of the Share Our Wealth Society, and he just was not buying what Huey was selling in this scene. There was a lot of nuanced stuff happening here that I was like, this is a whole like one act play you got going on here in this scene with these two really good actors. And I couldn't quite parse what they were trying to say, but it was really interesting to watch.
I really missed having a decent quality print of this because I did not get to see the nuances. Actually, I don't think any of us got to see the nuances of the actors' faces. We had to judge a lot from physical acting, from what it is when someone's blurry. And it's often happened, and I don't know how, that we talk about something super obscure and then a few weeks later, it shows up on a streaming service, usually after we've already paid for it.
So after this interaction, which is just so strange and unsettled, we're suddenly back in 1935 and he is in the hospital and they're giving him oxygen and the nun is kind of giving him like off-brand last rites. It didn't seem like the last rites I've typically heard in movies, but she was praying for him and he's dying.
Ironically, Huey Long would have he died like a day and a half after being shot. He probably would have lived if the surgeons that they summoned from New Orleans wouldn't have gotten delayed by road construction on Airline Highway, the road that Long initiated to connect New Orleans and Baton Rouge. The surgeons actually got into a car accident driving alongside River Road, which is a road that runs alongside the Mississippi River on the way to get to him. So all his infrastructure plans and the thing that stopped the surgeons from getting to him was road construction.
That is a missing verse from Alanis Morissette's Ironic. Can we talk a little bit about his assassin? Because I felt like I wanted to know more about what was going on there.
So Dr. Carl Weiss, I believe, is the guy's name. I believe he was related to some judge that Long had wronged in his life. And again, the kind of prevalent theory now is that there was an argument and he was probably threatened with a weapon. But when Long's bodyguards, shot him full of holes like Swiss cheese, that it was actually a ricochet bullet that ended up striking Long. That was the kill shot. But Weiss had been blamed for all these years. Judge Pavey was the judge that was related to Weiss.
So interesting and so messy. As he's dying, Anne Heche is with him for a little bit, and then she gets tossed out of the room because his wife shows up, because that's what happens. You can't be the one who's with him when he dies, when he has a wife. And we have just this moment of Aileen and Seymour fighting over the box of money in his office. I need just a couple more minutes of this conversation establishing this more clearly, just because it's so he's leaving behind a box of money of bribes. Give me a montage where we show them filling up that box,
of what's important about the box, because I know this box of money was a big deal.
Yeah, and apparently his dying words were, I have so much left to do.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah.
And his wife tells him that he did the best he could. And then the movie ends. It feels all very abrupt because there's so much story and it's so short. I love a short movie, but I could have absolutely stood to understand more of the world, and I felt like we really got shortchanged.
Well, I felt that that running time was 2 hours minus commercials for broadcast in the 90s.
Yeah, it's 100 minutes long. There's way too much sort of happening that they're able to bring to surface level but not dig into, and it feels like we're missing so much. And I rarely want something to be longer, but
that's true.
I did want to understand more because I felt like they would introduce someone and they'd be there for a little bit, like the FDR battle. I wanted more than one scene about that.
Or that guy Farley, the postmaster, and I guess that job used to be a big deal. I think he is the James Farley that our big post office on 34th Street that is now a train station is named for.
So that's our movie. How are we feeling about it? I've been very vocal about feelings.
I thought it averaged out to okay. There is so much more it could have done, and I feel like I am judging it unfairly from all the things. I just feel like being able to see the actors' faces clearly would have added a good point or two to where I judged for. And I could, at some point, I might see a decent print of this and decide that my subsequent scoring was unfair. I couldn't see the costumes. I couldn't see. And that is not the movie's fault. That's TNT's fault for failing to do anything with their back catalog.
I mean, TNT did a bunch of great TV movies in the 90s. They did one on
Absolutely.
Yeah, they did one on Zelda Fitzgerald that Natasha Richardson played Zelda, and I remember that one really well. They did some really good prestige dramas, and it would be nice, like, make them available. We have streaming, like, everything. I don't know how that works and what kind of energy it consumes, but
And one thing is just a local living down here, it was impressive to watch that they actually filmed a lot of the sequences in the places where it actually occurred in history. Again, the hallway where he was assassinated, that's actually where it happened. When he got into that fight in the elevator at the Roosevelt, that's where that happened. It seems like the filmmakers at least tried to make it as authentic as they could for the time being, for the, the 90s with the TV budget.
it was also, like, very clearly a passion project for John Goodman. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, seeing him, like, really start to stretch himself as an actor and start to become, like, the John Goodman that we all know and love today.
Totally, and especially if you look at the nuance and some of the things he did with, portraying Huey Long, you could definitely tell repercussions and similarities when in his roles in "O Brother, Where Art Thou," and even his voice role in "Princess of the Frog." Very similar.
You know what I loved him on that was a New Orleans show was Treme, when he was
Treme was great.
Oh,
Yes.
that first season, so devastating.
And funny enough, he was supposed to be a cameo in the first episode, and that was it. And
Really?
everybody around just loved him so much that they created that, his character's in the whole first season. And it's just because he was available and they loved him so much that they decided we can't just, have him in the pilot. So
He should be in
he's great.
everything.
For my birthday a few years ago, a local artist did a print of all of the characters of Big Lebowski that John Goodman signed over Walter.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. He's a gift. I felt like he personally broke the blacklist in Trumbo, which the King brothers.
I love his scene in Trumbo so much where he comes out with the baseball bat and yells at the Hewitt guy, "I make crap movies. You can't do anything to me." It's a much better line than that. I love
Yeah.
that, but I've watched that bit on repeat.
But when this movie came out, it was 95. So, I mean, this is when Roseanne was coming to an end. So this is when he was first starting to try to figure out his whole film presence was when he did this, really.
And it seemed for like a minute there he was just going to be doing, like, because he made King Ralph, which, if I recall correctly, my judgment can be impaired from what I thought was good when I was 10. But I recall that being like a richer movie than it needed to be.
And then was it Matinee? Was the one where he was
Yes.
like the
Oh,
theater owner?
that's a great movie. So, a couple of awards talk things. This was nominated for 2 Primetime Emmys. Obviously, nomination for lead actor, outstanding lead actor in a miniseries or a special. And then also proving that I don't know anything, for Patrick Wilson for outstanding individual achievement in music composition for a miniseries or special. So what do I know? There was a lot of music in it.
It almost seems like the kind of music you would just, if something's set in the South, this is the music you play.
Yeah, ponderous.
Yes. There was just so much of it.
And especially just the as we talked about, the quality of the video was so bad, it was almost like listening to a radio drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noted that the makeup looked really brown in a 90s kind of way.
We loved
On the
that
woman.
brown makeup in the 90s.
I could see that.
We loved a brown lip,
Ugh.
which repulsive. Why were we doing that? Brown lip.
No idea. And I guess with all that out of the way, Sara, can you please give our listeners a quick refresher about how we score movies?
I'd be happy to. We rate movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas that we find to be subjectively and or objectively important in most films, but specially tailored to issues particular to biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com, and you'll also find a record of our scores for past episodes there. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing. Who would like to go first?
Sarah, why don't you go first?
Okay, so for outward appearances, makeup, and hair, I gave it a 9. Acting and casting, I gave it an 8. Passage of time, 5. Costuming, 8. Quality of the script, 4. Accuracy, 5. Storytelling, 3. Production value, 6. Production direction decision making, 6. And do we care, 3. So my score came to 5.7. Which is a perfectly acceptable score.
Okay, for outward appearances, makeup, and hair, I gave it a 6. For acting and casting, I gave it an 8. For passage of time, I gave it a 6. For costuming, I gave it a 7. For quality of the script, I gave it a 6. For accuracy, I gave it a 4 because it was more accurate than Caligula, but I hate composite characters. For storytelling, I gave it a 5. Production value, 7.5. For production direction decision making, 6, and for Do We Care, I gave it a 5, and my score came to 6.75.
For outward appearance, I gave it a 5. For acting or in casting, I actually gave this a 9. For passage of time, I gave it a 3. I thought there were way too many montages. Costuming, I gave it a 4. It was fine, but again, it was kind of hard to see. The quality of the script, I also gave that a 4. Accuracy, I gave it a 7 because the stuff with Huey Long's life, they actually did get pretty accurate. Storytelling, I gave it a 6. Production value, I had to give it a 2. It's a TV budget. Production direction, I gave it a 4. And Do We Care, I gave it a 5, which comes out to a 4.9.
All right.
So I have 6.75. Sarah, can you do the average?
Kingfish has received a 5.6.
Which is perfectly respectable, and it didn't earn second opinion, but there are perfectly good reasons for that.
Yes. It was a perfectly...
Some of them not the film's fault, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Everyone did their best.
Yeah.
That I will agree with.
I am fond of pointing out when it seems like everyone did their best and when it seems like everyone wasn't doing their best. So,
yeah, I wouldn't say anyone really phoned anything in here. Everyone went in this with the best of intentions, as did Huey Long at the beginning of his life.
Yes. So, other stuff that you should watch instead. I think that Kingfish I think it's enjoyable. There's no reason not to watch it. Especially
I would
if
say
it winds up on
watch this
streaming.
one. I would say watch Kingfish over. I want to say in the early 2000s there was a big budget kind of fictionalized version of this called All the King's Men. It starred Sean Penn. I thought Kingfish did a better job telling the story than that did, and that was a big deal when they filmed that down here.
Yeah. Sorry, I just did like Donald Sutherland and Body Snatchers there, but I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that disaster.
Yes. As far as like political movies in the South, I was a big fan of Primary Colors. So I guess if you're looking for something to watch with John Travolta, that's kind of a fictionalized version of the Clinton campaign.
That is a good one. This is a good sort of, I would say, primer on Huey Long, and I think that it probably tees you up to look into other facets of his life and to find out more information about any aspect of it that would interest you. But if you're just trying to like get your brain around who he was, this seems like a good, comfortable place to start. I would also say like anything John Goodman does has value to watching it, because you're going to see him performing really well. There's probably going to be some other interesting stuff going on. We've been lucky to watch a couple of great performances of his on this show. I mean, him in Raising Arizona, he's always good. Especially
when he's paired with the Coen brothers.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd recommend Trumbo, like I said before, for a fantastic supporting performance from John Goodman, or Treme for a bigger, sadder performance, and also any of his work with the Coen brothers. And I'm going to throw in a plug for Miss Wilma's Creamed Spinach at Brennan's. Not that Brennan's needs one more plug. I'm not sure if Miss Wilma is still the one there making the spinach. I didn't meet her. They just told me that she's the one who made the creamed spinach that I got. Because I ate there one day in 2022 when they were able to seat me at the bar at the last minute. And a plug for the city of New Orleans in general. I've stayed at a hostel. I've stayed at the Hotel Monteleone. I have had a fantastic time either way. It's the only place in the U.S. that gives me a sense of being elsewhere with a capital E, like the feeling I get in Europe. And it's a place where you can journey to it solo and not be lonely, because when you're eating alone at the bar, you will strike up a conversation that you will remember later. And the first time I was there, I noticed that one of the frozen people that puts out hats for tourists to put money into on Bourbon Street was dressed as Drew Brees. And I thought, what other city still has that kind of love for their star quarterback 12 years after they won their Super Bowl?
Oh, no kidding. If Drew Brees were to just decide he doesn't want to announce and he ran for governor of Louisiana, he would win in a landslide.
Love that.
I remember when the Saints won that Super Bowl and he was standing there with like this little baby with the earplugs on. My friend said
Yes.
he could now impregnate any woman in America by looking at her.
So funny, like that night, I'll never forget when the Saints won the Super Bowl. Me and my co-host on the show, John, we actually went down to Bourbon Street because we didn't know what else to do, because locals tend to not go to Bourbon Street. And
Figured.
that,
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
going up the Empire State Building.
right, exactly. But we ended up going down there, and that was the happiest I've ever seen the city in my entire life. You were getting hugs from strangers, high fives. People were crying like tears of happiness. It was just like this big catharsis after everything that happened with the hurricanes and everything. But that's just, the whole city was just so happy for that time being. From when the Super Bowl happened, there was a big parade. It was amazing.
Yeah, I thought Peyton Manning looked a little bit sad getting on that plane that he didn't get to like party with the hometown.
Right. Which is funny because that Super Bowl kind of was sealed up by an interception. So Peyton Manning did throw the touchdown that won the Super Bowl for New Orleans.
Yeah, Peyton always seemed like a little bit of a wet blanket to me. Like Eli seemed like the fun one.
And actually, if you come down here, the one that you see everywhere is Cooper, the other brother.
The one where I guess he had that injury early on, or some
Correct.
kind of thing where he was supposed to be as good as his brothers, but he couldn't play.
Yeah, it's a magical city. It is like a really unique, wonderful place that has
Well, the
retained.
next time y'all are down here, you need to reach out. We'll all get together
Oh,
and have a
Yes.
cocktail.
yes, we will. I will eat all the fried oysters.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bring it.
do we have anything else?
Yes.
I was also going to say, I'm still reading The Power Broker, and it is still excellent. And that's my
Yeah.
message for forever, because it's going to take me a really long time, but still good.
I still haven't finished Master of the Senate if we're going to talk Robert Caro. But
I mean, I think like
So-
my tombstone is going to say, I'm still reading The Power Broker.
do you want that in quotation marks or just the sentence?
I want it in quotation marks. Are you kidding me?
Okay, Glenn, before we go, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Sure, you could always listen to me and the guys over at the Awesome Village Podcast. You could follow us we're on all the socials, Awesome Village Podcast. We're on TikTok, awesome.village.pod. We'll do videos from time to time. You could, like I said, find us anywhere. If y'all, you're in the New Orleans area, we're starting to put together a podcast cruise, possibly.
Cool.
Which, yeah, because my wife does book book, so we may be recording on a cruise ship coming up in 2027.
Nice.
Everyone's welcome. And again, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I had so much fun.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
so much for joining us, Glenn.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And
It's
thank
my
you for
pleasure.
bringing your Huey Long knowledge. And yeah, this was a delight to have you. Should I outro us?
Yeah, Sarah, can you do the outro?
Sure thing.
All right.
So, couple of things here. Our podcast baby has matured, and we have launched a Patreon just in effort to defray some of the costs associated with bringing our show to you. That's platform hosting, recording equipment, research. We have to occasionally order a book off the internet. And we also sometimes have to pay for movie rentals. Sometimes we may want to see a movie in theaters or want to see each other in person and pay for public transit to do so. So for now, but not forever, we are offering shout outs and access to our awful first 3 episodes to anyone who chips in for us. But there's more goodies to come. And with that, we'd love to thank Brandon and Gates, who are already signed up.
Thank you, Brandon and Gates. And just to be clear, that thing about public transit, it's so we can record the episode together. You're not paying for us to just hang out.
No.
And sometimes it gets to be really late at night and one of us has to get a car home.
It's New York. And also, if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we have visual aids from our episodes. And our Instagram handle is @BioPicAPodcastStory. So do check us out there, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. And please also check out our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com to see the official episode ratings of all the movies that we have done so far. And if you would like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com. Our theme music is by Ben Patch. The intro is his song Slater Cannonball, and the outro is Spring Breakers, and you can check him out on Spotify.
Tune in next week when our Turkey Day episode will be about Parnell, which is the story of Irish independence leader Charles Stewart Parnell, and is also notorious as Clark Gable's worst movie.
I'm mad at you for making me watch this already, but I am going to be having my revenge on you by making you watch Walking Tall starring Joe Don Baker.
Naturally, I will be doing all the research for Parnell, and Sarah will be doing all the research for Walking Tall.
It's the right way.
Not the remake with Dwayne Johnson. Right?
Oh, no. No.
Or the sequels with Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah.
That went direct to video.
Or the sequels with Bo Svensson. We're watching the greasy, dirty, low budget, produced by Bing Crosby for reasons, Walking Tall, starring Joe Don Baker.
I love it.
It's sweaty and disgusting. And Rena, I'm afraid it's going to break your brain, but I'm also really enjoying hearing how much you hate it.
Again, Glenn, thank you so much for coming on the show. And
thank you so much for having me.
And good night to the earnest and the cynical.
Good night. And good night, Glenn. Thank you. Come
Good
back
night,
anytime.
Sarah. Good night, Glenn.
Good night, Sarah. Good night, Rena.
Good night.